Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about it. Gavin Newsom having a nervous breakdown, having psychotic breaks. He's snapping. Got a lot of people we just showed have different theories. Well, I know a whole lot more about the situation than a lot of people may think. A whole lot more. We have a situation that involves basically a whole lot of documents that have been coming down in relation to a very serious filing. We have a major articles violation. The entire Gavin Newsom ticket is disqualified. The whole thing. That's the way the articles work. You attack a candidate's campaign, their camp, you're done. You're disqualified. And, well, all the people with you basically are disqualified. That means all the hirees, all the people that were appointed. And guess what? From the moment that they were participants in the campaign forward, their retirement benefits are gone. They're taken away if they're lucky. Because they're not earned properly. They had no right to have those benefits. Now, if the evidence is deeper on some of these people, it's very actionable. These people are going to go away. They're going to go to prison for a long time. And if they're involved at the highest levels, the treason levels, they're facing the death penalty. Voters, this is not a game. It's not a game. The last thing that certain Democrats in California want to occur is scrutiny. They are desperate, incredibly desperate to do anything because they don't want to lose power. They're afraid that people are fed up. They're going to come after them for what they've done. Voters, if you're not sitting down, maybe you need to sit down, voters. And I know some of you are upset. Some of you are already, I guarantee you, some of you are upset. When you hear this, I know there's a lot of people. They're going to be like yelling at their screen and stuff and like, yeah, no duh, yeah. And they're upset because they already know they're victims. They know. They're upset. People have died. If you're not sitting down, you should sit down maybe. There's a lot of deaths that have occurred. A whole lot of deaths. We got a lot of dead people because of what Gavin Newsom has done. Now, we have a lot of stuff here that's highly important to go over, basically, and it deals with a lot of different subject material. A lot of it has to do with the different filings that I've done. Now, we're going to talk about why there's a problem with me getting certain filings done correctly, because some people don't want to do their job. Because if they do their job, if certain clerks help, if certain judges help, and they do their job, they already know that the evidence that they're looking at is fire and brimstone. They know it will be the end of them as well, because they'll be fired. They'll be disqualified. They'll lose their retirement. There are many people out there, they know what the federal Constitution of the United States is. They know what the articles are. They know what it means. Maybe some of them don't. But see, that's the big one. What happens when you put people in a lie detector and you find out they did know? When they claim they didn't know, then they're deeply in conspiracy. So yeah, this means that basically thousands of people are disqualified. We have 3 judges currently serving on the California Supreme Court. They're disqualified. They were appointed by Newsom. They're done. That means right now the ballot item and others, the one that, Chad got going, that has problems. There's a whole lot of problems with it. You know why? Because there's the dumbest, ridiculous arguments you could possibly imagine not to go through basic math. And three of those judges are not supposed to be there. They were never supposed to be there because article violations occurred. Shirley Weber's involved. She refused to respond. She's involved with Julie Sue. Rob Bonta refuses to respond. Now, the electronic notices that went to Weber, to these other people, many of these other people, also copies went to other people, like the United States Senate. So these people are not responding, and they're flipping the bird at the United States Senate. And they know there's a problem. And the problem evolved. See, here's the thing. They had a chance several elections back to do the right thing, but they just wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't take care of the right thing to do. So the old COVID stay at home and shut down orders, it was used as a weapon. They weaponized it. They wiped out people's lives. They wiped out people's businesses. And yes, they used it as a weapon to interfere with the process of elections, attacking me, my campaign, my omnibus archive. These people are seriously crazy. These people are in big trouble. Newsom knows documents because he's seen the documents. He understands that some of them are facing the same situation that the Rosenblums were facing because national security is involved. I've done some really good analytic work in the past, really good. 9/11, I predicted a 4 to 7 plane scenario where terrorists would exclusively use Boeing aircraft. Boeing knows this. The federal government knows this. On 9/11, I was on the phone with a team of people. Now, I'm going to get emotional because I talked to them. I told them, I says, look, I'm at a payphone. I'm traveling. I can't get to my stuff, but I see what's happening. And I have a pretty good idea what's going on. And so I'm talking and I'm figuring there's no way that these people are going to believe me. And all of a sudden I hear one of them in the background yelling, I found his letter. Oh, you guys got to look at this. You won't believe this. Keep this guy. Keep this guy. And all of a sudden, here it is. They find the letter and they go, yes, this guy's got a 4 to 7 scenario. That's exactly what we're looking at. Keep this guy. I'm going to move fast forward because I was limited in truth to what I could do. There's a certain amount of things that were in play, and there's not always a whole lot you can do about it. People design scenarios where they figured they would have the optimum chance and nobody would be able to stop them. They could do very little about it. That's the truth. That's how some of this stuff works. What was happening on 9/11 is called a 555 Nostro, if you're deeply involved in certain intelligence slang words. It is the type of scenario to trigger a limited nuclear war. That's what bin Laden was trying to do. They had a whole lot of material, raw material, cake and stuff, radioactive, make dirty bombs, so they could spread fear with small bombs all over the place. They had an idea. Bin Laden wanted to overthrow Saudi Arabia. He wanted to destroy Israel. He wanted to take over the whole Middle East. And he wanted people to see him as the great prophet. There was very serious psychological material that goes into this. I don't want to get into all of it, how it works. I'll just tell you again, I was on the phone with these people, and I could hear them all scream. They were professionals till the end, till the phone went dead, because the aircraft went straight into the building, and they saw it coming. I could hear their voices change. As first, one of them started to scream, and then another one, and oh my God. And these people are all paying attention at what the other person is looking at and screaming. Looking out the window at an aircraft coming in to kill them. That's what happened. That's the truth. Now, that's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. They were professionals to the end, to the very end. I assure you of that. Now, my day wasn't done there. The reality that there was still more to unfold, because the prediction that I made had another piece of logic, and that is that there would be 2 Stinger missile teams that would lay in wait, be intaking information, be looking to docks, find the president wherever he was, and take the opportunity to down his aircraft with 2 Stinger missiles. So I had to convince the United States Secret Service that there was a problem, that this was real, that they had to come up with a brand new plan that had never been used before, so there would be no possible way ever for somebody to anticipate where the president would be moving. That's what needed to be done. And to tell you frankly, actually just for a short period of time. So that basically, the president would have a chance to go someplace else, and all the people that were planning to kill the president, all those different people in the loop, would see a piece of material appear on TV. Here's the president, and everyone's going to go, why did the president go there? The president's never gone there before. What's going on? At that moment, that's the moment when the people who thought they had a plan realized it was over with. The plan that they thought they had just changed. It wouldn't matter what intelligence they thought they could have gotten. Everything had changed. And at that moment, President George Bush had power placed back into his hands. So what he did is, he stood up. He knew what was going on. He knew security was scrambling to get in places. But at that point, he knew what was going on. He stood up and says, I'm going to command. I want to turn around and get back on my jet and go to Washington. Because basically the media is leaving. They're all leaving. Nothing more to see here. You all have to go. Then the president gets back on the plane, flies to Washington. Now everything has pivoted, and power is right back into the hands of the president of the United States. At that point, there was really nothing more I could do. That was it. That was the few intricate moments in time to change something, to foil somebody's plan. And I'll tell you right now, they did find those 2 Stinger missile teams. Those guys went to Guantanamo. They found 1 Stinger missile, and they confessed that there was another, but they ditched it because it wasn't working properly. The most likely reason that it wasn't working properly is because it was one of the modified chip systems that had a little special thing on board. Basically, a little bit, tiny bit of consciousness, that it was basically designed with a GPS understanding to only work in certain regions of the world. If somebody tried to bring it and use it against us, it would deactivate. And I believe that's exactly what happened. Great chip. But as for here and now, we have the Democratic Party in California committing more crimes than some people can count on their fingers and their toes, and a lot of people are dead. We have genocide in California. There's a whole bunch of Democrats. They are desperate. They are desperate because they've attacked an archiver. They've attacked another candidate repeatedly. And they know I'm coming for them. They know I had a few friends out there. They know I sent evidence, a little here, a little there. There's evidence that pops up in places mysteriously. All of a sudden it's on somebody's desk and it's like, what is this? It says evidence. They look at it. Wow, this is interesting. Where did this come from? Doesn't seem to be a clue. Sometimes that's the way things are done. Now, we have a situation that's important that we have to deal with. There's a whole lot of catching up with all the crimes that have been committed in California. All the violence. There's been lots of violence. So what we have here is a situation basically
August 11th,
that involves
2021.
evidence.
Because part of what you have here is a federal election situation. I was more than just a gubernatorial candidate. I was also a candidate
Bonta.
running for
We
president.
have a lot of
It's my right to
situations
do
going
that.
on right now in Riverside.
What's
We have
important?
Chad Bianco doing an independent
There's a lot of things
investigation
that are important that people
that
don't
are turning state's
understand.
evidence.
Basically, I own thousands of website domains. Thousands. And no matter which ones I want to use, the state of California has a division to blacklist, algorithmic isolation, electronic kidnapping. They do it to people all over the state. We have voters trapped in false scenarios all over the state. It's crucial for people to understand this. No valid election currently going on in the state of California. There's no valid election currently going on in the state of California. There's no valid election of the candidates running for governor as listed by the Secretary of State's office. By my count, there's more than 300 people actually running for office right now. Candidates. It is the largest field in the history of California elections. This is the truth, voters. There's a whole lot happening, and there's a whole lot of crime going on, being done by
all Democrats,
Shirley Weber, Julie Sue, Rob Bonta. Julie Sue.
Basically, when you action this hour, on this date, from this woman, you run into a situation involving mass dereliction of duty.
So the state attacked me. They did this. It's crucially important to understand that they did this. Attacking an archive is more than a felony. Our forefathers have a policy that there is no place in the world that you can hide. That's the truth. That's the truth. So they violated national security, and I end up having a fleet coming under attack. You can imagine 10 RVs could have been on the freeway system in Los Angeles, equipped with Wi-Fi. Some of them had already been equipped with a 2-mile Wi-Fi range. 1 million people a day would have saw those RVs. But the state of California had to blacklist. They had to attack my finances. And it's not the first rodeo. Because the way the articles work, the way the law works in this, constitutionally, Gavin Newsom is disqualified and everybody on his ticket is disqualified. And guess what? Everything's reviewable, everything that they have done. And because they've done these things, it's not just one term. It's not just one term. It's both of the Newsom's terms. Now we're talking way more than 4,000 people. And because the blacklisting that's been occurring, the algorithmic stuff, some of it was ordered by the state. And Google's the one who did the deed. The state's been responsible for oversighting internet in California for a long time. Well, the federal government has repeatedly, basically convicted many companies, including Google, of impeding the, free flow of information across the web. So you can't have an election when you have the state of California discriminating and blacklisting people from being listed as they declare to run for office. I mean, think of it. In between elections, guess what? There's no paperwork to do in between elections. That means that all the people declaring to run for office are supposed to populate when you're doing a list looking for candidates. But voters, that's not what has happened. In fact, that's not what's happened in many elections. I got 2 notices from X.com. Elon Musk's office said, "We don't agree with this. We've been ordered to spy on you by the Biden administration." And the way I read that letter, the rest of it, basically the actions are that I was to be blacklisted by the changing of algorithms, that I would not be allowed to do what law says, to freely go talk to people, approach people, because it's an election process. A candidate is always allowed to go up and talk to people, call people on their private phones. If they don't want to talk, okay, fine, but I'm allowed to do that. It's part of the election process to be in touch with the voters. Well, that wasn't the only letter, because it happens again. There's another letter, and the state of California has basically once again ordered X.com. They're going to spy on me. They too are also parties who are blacklisting again. And Elon Musk is like, we don't agree with this, and we're going to tell you. In other words, we're not going to lie for the Biden administration. We're not going to lie for the state of California. Very important. So I've been putting a lot of evidence out on X.com for quite a long while. Now, as we move forward here, there are other things. Google has confessed. Google's confessed, and I've done more research, and Google even admits and confirms there are these facilities that the state of California runs that are blacklisting people. They're using algorithmic isolation, electronic kidnapping. At this point in time, the election is over with. There is no free and fair election. All the double talk you're hearing coming out of people's mouths, like Gavin Newsom, those are lies. They're all lies. Now, the thing is, I started running for office. By the way, you're allowed to run for 2 offices at the same time. I figured I'd mention that. Some people get confused about that. So I started running for office, way back when Jerry Brown was basically, running for his 3rd term. In fact, actually, I was running earlier than that. And Google gives me a notice that there's been complaints. Jerry Brown's campaign, the state of California, complains that for some reason, I seem to be rated number 2 on the first page list in the elections. And this made these people uncomfortable. They didn't want to have me anywhere near rated next to Jerry Brown on the same page. So they turned the screws, and Google tells me, well, we're going to change the way all of the algorithms and everything work to a different style. I'm going to spare you the long explanation of what they did. Let me just lay it out this way. It wouldn't matter what tags I used. It wouldn't matter following all these different special rules and techniques, having cross connectivity between multiple sites, having massive presence. None of that was going to matter because it was flat decided to just blacklist me. And that means that these violations go all the way back to Jerry Brown. And I have the evidence of this. This is a bad thing. Now, on my behalf, I've had the IRS investigate some of these items because the state of California has blacklisted me. They have fabricated falsely material. They have lied. When I was a fully licensed driver out of Arkansas with insurance and tags paid and taxes paid, all this neat stuff on file, they just bow their neck and they're just going to fabricate a bunch of information. Now, it just possibly might have something to do with Shirley Weber. She came from Hope, Arkansas. Now, as you see, I registered as a presidential candidate some years back out of Arkansas. In fact, I was the only person in the entire state to go down to the Capitol and file to run for president out of Arkansas. Now, I ran into a gentleman. He worked at Target, and he decided that he thought that my web page was interesting. He thought that my campaign was interesting. In fact, he was very impressed. He wanted to volunteer, even apply for a job. I had many openings. In fact, treasurer was among them. He said he was interested. I says, well, you have to also understand we handle classified information. We're going to have to get a security clearance for you. I can't guarantee you anything at all until after your security clearances are confirmed. And he said, well, let me go ahead and get copies of paperwork that might be needed. What would they be? I told him. So he decided to go to Little Rock and pick up certified documents. To my understanding, he was going to go down there. I also was dealing with a situation. I had to go on a trip. I did a lot of trips. I'd go back and forth between Arkansas and California. I'd go to auctions, Baker's auctions, different places. And, I would run material back and forth. I did a lot of auction stuff. I would buy a lot of computers in bulk. I would repair them. I would auction them regardless of loss. They would be sold at prices incredibly cheap. About 10,000 computers. In fact, I felt good about this. I changed people's lives. I changed families' lives because they could feel proud and honest about doing something that was good for their children and obtain 1 to 3 computers at an incredibly low cost and get their children on the web, get the tools in the hands for their children to be able to compete in school with the other kids. This was a good thing. I did a lot of that. Now, in the course of doing all of these different types of weird, complicated auction things, it's a weird thing. You deal with, many times you have more assets than you could actually inventory. You end up handling things by box label. You'd have to be a business person to understand how it actually works. It's complicated. Some things are too time consuming. You have to do certain things certain ways. But of course, California wouldn't necessarily understand this. Anyhow, in the course of doing all this, I get a phone call from a friend of mine. His name was Robert Nichols. He was a former deputy sheriff. He says, Mike, are you okay? I says, yeah, I guess I'm okay. My truck's broke down. I'm at a truck stop at the moment, and my oil pump's out. I'm waiting for parts. Are you going to be able to get? Yeah, I'm going to be able to get back. I just got to wait for some parts. I can fix this.
And he says, well, yeah, there's something happened. Yeah, we thought you were killed. What? Yeah, we thought you were killed. Somebody went down to the Democratic leadership building in Little Rock and killed the Arkansas Democratic leader. And the guy had a truck just like mine. Bob says, yeah, you guys got a truck just like yours. And I'm like, well, no, Bob, no, I'm in Arizona right now. I don't know anything about this. And at the moment, it wasn't clicking in my head what had possibly transpired. I didn't have a clue. Bob says, yeah, well, we were just concerned that you shot that guy. And I'm like, Bob, all of my guns are in your safe. How could I shoot somebody? And Bob's like, oh, yeah, that's right. So yeah, needless to say, we ended up, the phone calls ended, and it wasn't too much longer. It took me several days to start figuring out what happened as the media brought stuff out until I figured out something had happened. And basically, the gentleman that was interested in getting a job, was interested volunteering, getting a job, that had not been vetted in yet, had gone down to the Capitol building to check documents. And he verified that I was the only person to register to run for president out of the entire state for Arkansas. And he had a thing he really wanted to, run. He asked me, he says, well, which party are you running with? And at the time I says, well, I'm not entirely sure yet. He says, oh, well, you should run for the Democratic Party. You should. So he wanted this to occur. It was his idea. I says, well, when we get back, we can talk about it. Well, I guess he just decided he'd go ahead on his own, and he went down there with certified paperwork and had a discussion with some people down there, and I don't think it went very well. I can tell you more about what I think happened, but I'll give you the short item. I had talked once before with some of the Democratic members in Arkansas about me possibly running as a Democrat because I was unsure at the time. And they straight out made jokes and says, man, you're not a communist. We can't back you. You're not a communist. And I'm like, wow, they were saying this jokingly. And I'm like, you don't know what my campaign's about yet. How could you make that determination as to who I am? But are you people actually communist? Like, they started laughing. I actually wasn't pleased. I didn't think it was very funny. And, I told him, so I says, well, look, I have quite an interesting agenda, but I'm very busy and I don't want to waste my time right now. And you people are chuckling like a bunch of jackals. I'm just going to go. We could talk at another time when I can bring in more of my paperwork and you can see how extensive and detailed my campaign is. Because I had a lot of people. I had people urging me from both parties in Arkansas, both ways. Run as a Republican. I'm like, no, you'll be better. No, run as a Democrat. But I had a lot of people urging me. A lot of people actually knew me. At least I felt that way. I had a lot of friendly people around me all over Arkansas. But what I fear happened, voters, is that this gentleman went down there and he had paperwork. And he knew that I was the only person in the whole state of Arkansas to file. And more than likely, these people started spouting off with their mouth, joking like they had before, saying, well, you people aren't communist. And that may not have gone over very well with the gentleman. Because apparently he went back out to his vehicle. He had a firearm. He went back inside, and he blew the Democratic leader of Arkansas away. He blew him away. And maybe he felt that he
was all alone and that these people were committing treason and that he didn't have a second witness. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But as for motives, Shirley Weber from Hope, Arkansas, now the Secretary of State of California, could definitely have additional ulterior motives, let's say. Of course, we also have Kamala Harris, who also didn't want to do her job when I demanded to prosecute the police officer that was apparently a Democrat who wanted to, he didn't like my campaign. He didn't like me, so he's going to blacklist me and falsely arrest me. So the state of Arkansas investigates it and says, you not only haven't done anything wrong, if you can get the guy into the state, we'll prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. But frankly, we'll tell you, California is not going to extradite him. However, you could talk to bounty hunters. That's possible. You can file some paperwork. You could get bounty hunters. You get them in the state, we're going to prosecute. So again, I got the IRS on my side. They've investigated. They found different things. Illegal arrest, repeated illegal arrest, repeated illegal fabrication of items concerning me. Because I'm going to tell you the truth, these people have agendas. You see, Julie Sue worked with the blacklist. That blacklist came from someplace, people. When people signed, filled out, 1.2 million people, actually more than that. 1.2 is what came back and complained and says, yeah, we're filing complaints. What's going on here? Julie Sue took that list to the federal government and says Congress has ordered people to be paid, and these people are citizens entitled to compensation. So the federal government paid her. And then she put the money in multiple accounts and refused to hand it out to the people that were due that money. Tens of billions of dollars going to people who weren't even citizens. Some weren't even in the United States. Basically, everybody except the people who really deserve to get financially compensated. At least for a while, that seemed to be what I would see. I did some fairly intensive investigating of their phone systems. They have a bunch of run you around robots upstairs, downstairs. You get through and they tell you there's no funding left. You use different phones. You call up, you go, hablo no English. Oh, we can help you right away, senor. Yes, we have plenty of money. We start getting through the process, and halfway through the process, oh no, you're actually a citizen. I'm sorry. We don't have any more money left for people who are citizens. We only have money left for people that are non-citizens. We can't process you. I've tested it over the course of months several times using different phones. This was a repeated thing occurring. Voters, I assure you, this is the truth. And I'm telling you that these people do not communicate with business leaders. They don't communicate with other candidates. They have a very closed system. Julie Sue even testified several times in front of the Senate. And when she was asked about her communication methods, she basically stated that she exclusively communicated with unions. This seemed to be the case. She's a big divert and run around and avoid answering direct questions. This is Julie Sue. She's responsible for oversighting and engineering the phone system that blacklisted people. And in a state of emergency, she blacklisted, and they had 1.2 million people complain. Voters, 1.2 million people. Julie Sue appoints four whole people to be the investigators to review those files. Voters, that's easily 10 years worth of labor. And of course, that was only a state of emergency situation. But she hired more than 17,000 people from my research to help people who were not even citizens get money. These are people, voters, who weaponized anything they could get control of in their hands for their own purposes. And many of them violated the Constitution of the United States. They violated the process of elections. They violated the most basic continuity of communications, continuity of elections, continuity of government. This is who these people are. Voters, we do not have a free election at this point in time. And voters, I'm very serious. We have a lot of dead people out there. There are many people who are afraid. I've talked with more than 70 attorneys earlier on that did not want to get involved with a case of this nature. Despite the fact that I have massive amounts of evidence, they were afraid of the California syndicate. They were afraid for their children, for their family's future, for their future. This includes prosecutors. We have prosecutors. They're afraid. There are very few people that are willing to stand up and not be afraid right now. Voters, that's very important. I have people, voters, that were witnesses. The violence also focused against me from these various groups. There are people that help fund these groups, that help raise money to bring these groups into being. At one time, that was even Steve Hilton, raising money to help bring certain groups into existence that continue to evolve. And today we see what's going on. We see the violence going against ICE. We see this situation. This is the truth, voters. I'm in a private witness protection program at this point. I've had 2 attempts on my life by gunfire. I was poisoned. I was in the hospital for about 5 months. We're still having problems getting through with the investigation to understand everything about the poisoning, but apparently more than 300 other people also were poisoned. And as it turns out, there has been many discoveries of foreigners running around having these little labs and getting caught in different places, running around poisoning agriculture. At least that's what they think's going on. You can look up for yourself and come to your own conclusions. There's a lot of things that have not been made public yet. But when there's smoke, there's fire. So we have people doing shotgun effects, setting up smoke screens, poisoning food, manipulating stock, a whole big, huge bag of dirty tricks. They go on and on and on. There's virtually no limit to it. It's a huge, massive, multi-RICO situation. I even eventually sent documents to Weber stating that I had discovered numerous multi-RICO situations. I mean, in short, people, voters, if I were to nutshell this, an archive getting damaged is like the Library of Alexandria being on fire. And you walk up to people and you say, hey, look, need some water here, need some help, need some water. And what do these people do? They do nothing. They go into dereliction of duty and they do nothing. The shock of this, many people would not believe that it would be possible that you could have people look at these type of serious situations, these type of emergencies, and just come up with a basic attitude and say, let it burn. Voters, I want you to research what happened in the Pacific Palisades. I want you to understand some of the other things that have been going on. You need to understand the truth. Voters, this is about the truth. And bringing in lie detectors has always been part of the way that I want to do my investigation. Lie detection equipment's mandatory in California since like the early 80s. Gavin Newsom knows this. It's one of the reasons he's having a nervous breakdown. He's snapping. He knows that me and mine are out there and we're doing investigations. There's every reason to believe that he's trying to signal as many people remotely as possible to get involved in violence, to activate crazy people, to run around and attack people, to run around and attack every other opponent, to try to maximize whoever the chosen ones are, whatever that is. Voters, there's so much more that's been happening. It's very complex. I understand many of you don't have that much time. You have to work. A lot of you have kids. But you're going to have to find a little extra time because you need to get more education. You need to understand more about what they've done. Because as a nonprofit omnibus archive, the damage that California has done is into the many billions of dollars. Data, computers, programming, my scientific research, my classified research, that ends up becoming very expensive. I also had people who donated their life's work to the omnibus, to the nonprofit data. To replace that data would have cost more than $900 million several years ago. And data is now worth a premium because of all the AI startup companies. And yes, I admit, I also was interested in AI. I was doing a lot with it. I liked AIs that are not woke, that have the Constitution of the United States in it. Most of these AIs, I've never seen one that can give you a copy of the original words verbatim, not an annotated copy, the original words. They can't do it. So this is the problem. If you have a device that is not equipped with the true words, how can it give you the truest answer? Well, voters, frankly, it can't. The math's not in it to be utilized to begin with. There's a lot of reasons for this. People want to make a product where if they decide to use a sales pitch technique, that the device is not going to immediately say, oh, that could be against the law. They don't want to hear that. But I think there's more to it because we also have the state of California ordering companies to put certain types of protection in. Companies put certain types of protection in. You can be like me, researching to prosecute people, and then you get harassed by language models trying to tell you what the truth is when the language model doesn't have a clue what the truth is. I have evidence in my hand and I'm working with it. I put it into the language model and eventually it goes, wow, you have evidence. You need to do this. This gives me a list of things to do. Voters, again, in order to get fair legal, activity going on, you have to have people that were not appointed or hired in conjunction with state authority currently. Because I explained to you the way the law works, how many people's jobs are on the line. It's effectively 10,000 people that are going to lose their jobs. It's kind of amazing that you have Gavin Newsom use the same number, apparently, again, trying to get more volunteers. Somehow, I don't know, whatever, he's trying to build up a military. But see, they've also banned people from having guns. They removed the letter S from the word arms. So the chain of documents, some of them also went to the United States Senate, to the United States Archive, and went right through the United States Secretary of the Senate. So these people in California are lying about getting service. They're calling the United States Senate liars. That's what they're doing. Voters, that is what they're doing. These facts, voters, they're undeniable. Undeniable. What these people have done, they must be held accountable for what they've done. They've created very creative mechanisms to use mass economic demographic warfare. They weaponized it. They've destroyed so many lives. They've negatively affected easily more than 3.8 million people from my research. And mysteriously, I would keep coming under violent attack and attempted assassinations. Many attacks on an archiver, on a candidate, on an archive. And law enforcement says that they were ordered not to do fingerprints, not to investigate, because here's the state policy that doesn't allow them to do that. So I'm going to tell you there are people I've had long discussions with in law enforcement that do not agree with these items that they have been ordered to follow respective to certain protocol, which is a conundrum, voters. It's a conundrum because the state says local has to take care of business first and pass the case up. But local says, look, we have these policies that order us not to do that. Now, who invented that? People have to take an oath to the Constitution of the United States, to the Constitution of California, an oath of office. When they violate their oath to the Constitution of the United States, that means that the policies that they're inventing in writing, that written information that now diabolically opposes the federal Constitution, those are written words of confession. Many of these people, voters, cannot possibly win in a court of law. Gavin Newsom knows this. He knows that him and others, if they're brought before the correct court, a court that's not corrupt, before judges that are not afraid, that the mere presence of those documents that were generated proves the mathematical logic of the formulas, because they are diabolically opposing the Constitution of the United States. This means that they're already guilty of committing treason. Some of these people, voters, are facing the death penalty. It's on the table to be dealt with. Voters, I understand it's getting late. There's a lot of time. But it's crucially important for you voters to understand this disclosure, because it's very involved. The latest adjustment moves the damage from moving. I'll just tell you, it went from 900 million into the billions. The beginning of the month it hit 6 billion, and we hadn't done a full evaluation. We just reevaluated more portions we had not considered before, and we're still not done. Voters, the damage to the archive is now going to cost more than $10 billion to repair. More than $10 billion. You see, there's more than one billionaire running for office in this election. And as we have Shirley Weber, unwilling to share the most basic documents, things like, oh yeah, I was a petition carrier sometimes. Yeah, I helped verify people's signatures for, well, proposals to be put on the ballot. But she couldn't spend 5 minutes of her time, nor her staff, to verify this and then confront Julie Sue. There's no excuse for that, voters. None whatsoever. Again, the deliberate intent of dereliction of duty is blatantly honest. In front of us, right on the table. There's the honesty. Gavin Newsom's having a breakdown. It almost says like, oh, I'm going to break the glass. Oh, there's plenty of lies. Oh, there's plenty of what? Lies left in him? What is he talking about? He's snapping, voters. I don't think this man is qualified emotionally to be the governor. I'm sure his attorneys are going to claim that he's not fit for trial because he's facing the death penalty. Yes, voters. He's one of the people that's actually facing the death penalty. There's at least 7 people, because of the violations they committed, are facing the death penalty. I'm in a RICO protection system right now. I can't show my vehicles. I can't show my face, because when the election began, people were putting my vehicles and my face all over the websites, all over social media. They faded out. And then mysteriously, here comes all this violence against me. And we see the exact same patterns occurring with ICE. Voters, please, take some time and understand there's a lot more truth out there that you need to understand. I guarantee that if you're not trapped in a false narrative, that you know somebody who is. My name is Michael Crosby. I'm claiming a major articles violations in previous elections, and that these parties are disqualified. I'm also claiming openly that this current election has been tainted. It's not a true, free, and fair election. We need to delay this election for a year. We need to hold 4 emergency elections, one every 90 days. We need to verify, voters, with you whether you know certain facts, whether you've been trapped in false narratives. Whether or not, we need you to convey to us evidence. If you're afraid, voters, the one way you can convey certain crucial evidence is through voting. You can say the state owes you money. You can say a lot of things and keep anonymity at a certain level. But voters, that will require 4 emergency elections, one every 90 days. I want you voters to think about this, how important it is to have the right questions and the right disclosure and the right chance for you to participate, so we can get some of these numbers straight and move forward with the repairs that we must undertake here in our state, California. Thank you very much.